Hey everybody, we love cars, we love talking about cars, and we have a show that we're calling This Week in Cars, where we talk about all the latest and greatest headlines in the automotive industry and just discuss things that we find interesting. So, I'm Sin.
And I'm Nick.
And this is This Week in Cars. So I'm going to put a list of things that we're going to be talking about right down here. And you guys can scroll and skip to the next topic if it doesn't interest you. Or you guys can just stay and watch the show, and we'll leave the discussion open for comments at the end of the show. So, here are the 5 topics. First, we're going to talk about EV cars. We're going to talk specifically about the Land Cruiser EV concept, also the Mach-E recall, the EV industry, how it is right now, what we think is going to happen in the future, and where it's going to go. And then we're going to talk about the Manual Supra, probably throw in some 400Z, our thoughts about the Manual Supra and the Z, what we find appealing, will we buy it, so on and so forth. The Integra, Civic Si, and the upcoming Civic Type R, and the 86 BRZ, and to end, we're going to talk about the Acura MDX and the new Lexus RX 350. So, getting into the first topic. I know, Nick, this one's a weird topic because, I mean, it's not a weird topic. We're car guys, right? So, as car guys, we kind of have a connection, or we tend to gravitate towards internal combustion cars or ICE cars. So the whole industry right now is basically pivoting to electric EV cars. A lot of it is because like Europe is banning the sale of EV cars in 2030, and Japan has announced that they're banning internal combustion cars as well. So that's basically forcing the entire industry to pivot and move away from internal combustion, which I think it's going to be really hard.
Me too.
Yeah, and it's one of those, we'll call it first world problems, because the first world maybe can handle it. The infrastructure is not there yet, but they're working on it. But most of the cars that are being sold around the world right now are internal combustion cars. So it's going to be very difficult to sell an EV car to a lot of people in Canada and a lot of people in third world countries where the infrastructure is not good enough to support an EV vehicle, or they live in an apartment, or they just don't have access to charging. Because right now, like, even if you were to convert gas stations into charging stations, it still can't work. You can't have people come in and sit there for a half an hour while their car charges. Like, that's just, it's a whole mess. Like, the world is not really set up for that right now. But I do think there's a good use case for electric vehicles, and I see the value in it. And I know a lot of people that have it and they love it. But obviously, the people that enjoy it now or have it now have the resources or have the infrastructure built in their home where they can go home, plug in their car, and basically wake up with a full battery or full tank of electric charge. Or metaphorically speaking. But Nick, what are your thoughts here? Also, Ford had a recall on all their new Mach-E's, and that whole production has basically been halted or slowed down. And basically all EV production outside of Tesla has been slowed down just because of the chip shortage, and also now it's a battery shortage. They simply just can't make enough batteries to kind of fuel this demand for EV vehicles right now. So Nick,
that's really my whole thought is, can the world support this? Not only the charging stations, but can we get enough lithium mined? Is that even possible? Is there enough? I'm sure there is, but I'm sure it's going to get harder and harder to get to, right? And I mean, what about the colder regions? What about the regions like you mentioned, parts of Canada, parts of other very rural countries, right? You know, like how are, I don't think the internal combustion engine will ever completely die, right? And I think we've talked about this before, but I think there's so much that can still happen with the internal combustion engine, that there's still a ton of
there's a lot of room,
innovation that still has yet to be seen.
Yeah, we've seen some crazy development. It's essentially clean fuel now. I don't know if it's along the same lines as like clean coal, which is not really
right.
Yeah, but there are fuels that they're working on that are, I guess, I don't want to call them emissionless, but they're promoting them as a clean alternative to gasoline and diesel. Here's the thing, like the practicality about EV.
It's amazing.
It's
right?
amazing.
Like,
as an everyday vehicle, it makes sense. Like if you drive to work,
makes total sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. But like Texas their power grid can barely support people just turning on the heat.
Same with California, it's like, and where it's still a hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
If you think that having an EV today, you're changing the world, like it's just not realistic. That's somewhat delusional, right? Because the majority of this country still gets power from coal. So you're simply swapping one fossil fuel for another, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention how much loss is there, because I think it's a 15 to 20% loss in power from getting your power from the power station to your actual home, right?
Yeah.
So there's not, I mean, I don't know how much is calculated in this.
There is a power loss that's being made there.
There's a lot of inefficiencies along the way.
What
right?
I think is like, all right, so sorry to cut you off, but like, so if in less than 10 years they stop the production of internal combustion cars, does that mean everybody that's living in an apartment or condo or any place that doesn't have the infrastructure to have basically charging for every car in that lot, like, or like New York City where everybody parks on the street, is everybody just SOL? And if they go and buy a new car, the only new car that they can buy is an EV car, which they have to figure out a way to charge it.
Which they can't charge, so
it's a weird, I just...
And these things never work, right? When government forces things by fiat, right? It's this pipe dream.
Yeah, you're 100% on that, but not only that, like the charging infrastructure for cars that aren't a Tesla is terrible. And like you go to a charging station, like literally half the chargers are not working. Not only that,
I saw somebody just post about that just the other day.
Like, yeah, you'll go to a charging station and there would be, let's say, 4 stations for you to charge, and 2 of them are working and 1 is already occupied, or 2 of them are occupied. And you're sitting there and just like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I need my vehicle charged. And then what ends up happening is you're sitting there for an hour. Like,
and some of these places, the prices are astronomical for just a charge.
Now, if you have a house, which most Americans don't, and you can afford an electric car, and you can afford to install a charger for your car, which is $3 to $6 grand, depending on where you're at, it makes total sense. Like EV all the way. Like you go home, you plug in your car, you set it to charge in off-peak hours, and when you wake up, it costs you like $10 for essentially a full tank of gas. Like, makes complete sense. You can have the car start up and warm up and cool down before you get into the car inside your garage and not have to worry about fumes or emissions. Like, no oil to change, except for I think differential fluids. Like maintenance for the most part is basically this.
And there's got to be at least 90%
no gas,
less moving parts on an EV. It's got to be insane.
it makes sense, right? Like the practicality
total sense.
standpoint, like for most people, an EV makes complete sense if you own a home.
Mhm.
If you don't own a home, there's something that you need to figure out. You need to figure out where to charge it. You need to allocate time to charge it. And the technology is getting better. Not to say that it's not getting better. And that's where I go on to the next point, which is solid state batteries is around the horizon. So everybody right now that is buying a car, an electric car, you're basically an early adopter because you're buying the old technology of lithium ion technology, which you have these battery cells, and inside the cell is a bunch of little tiny batteries in it. So there's
of double A's.
There's a bunch of wasted space inside. There's a bunch of wasted everything because you open one battery cell and there's a ton of batteries in that cell, which looks like the 18650, or I forgot what the battery size, but it's a standard battery. And it's like you see this one big cell, but in that cell is a bunch of little tiny batteries, and so there's a lot of wasted space. And what a lot of people don't know about lithium is that it's extremely volatile. You put water on lithium, you get a fire. That's why you see these EV cars, when they catch fire, the whole fire department's out there and they spend an entire day trying to extinguish them because it's an extremely volatile, it's an
element.
Yeah. So, but solid state, that's a revolutionary technology that it's been the holy grail of battery technology for a long time, and it's finally here. Toyota has confirmed it, that they have the technology. And just so you guys know, Toyota, one of Toyota's biggest partners for batteries is Panasonic. One of Tesla's biggest partners for batteries is Panasonic. Panasonic is the number one largest battery manufacturer in the world. And so right now, the Japanese kind of have the heads up on that technology, but everybody's working on solid state. That's a void point, but right now, so Toyota has announced that they have the technology, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that technology moving forward. Now, what can that technology do for an EV car? Imagine a lithium battery that's not volatile, that is not susceptible to all the things that the lithium battery is right now. Also, it charges quicker, and instead of a cell having a bunch of little tiny batteries in it, you can make it any shape. So you could have the floorboard and these little pockets of the car be solid state batteries, and you could, car manufacturers could get really, really clever and smart about how they package the batteries, and that just makes the overall ability to design a car way simpler, because now the compromises of the batteries now don't exist anymore. So
it'd be awesome if they could make them lighter, right? Because as Tesla's weigh, a Model S I think weighs like what, 5,000, 6,000 pounds.
That's something that you're not going to be able to get around.
Okay.
Batteries are just heavy. Even the solid state batteries, it's still heavy. It technically it is lighter, just because there's it's not lighter. It's just the packaging is smaller, so the weight is still the same. As far as I know, in regards to like solid state battery type. But maybe that's something that somebody could correct in the comments. But
so have you driven a Tesla?
I have, yeah.
It's
amazing.
How much did you like it?
How much did I like it? It's one.
I know you liked it.
You
didn't like it.
All right, it's got cool factor, right? It's like when you get in a Tesla, you're amazed about like all the technology, and you're amazed at the screen, and you go, wow, like
I was amazed at the simplicity. I mean, literally a monkey could drive the thing, you know, and it's so intuitive. It's with that one pedal driving, you know, and for people that don't know, a lot of these Teslas have basically one pedal driving. So if you let off the gas, it basically applies like a pretty firm brake, right?
And you can adjust that. So
right, you can. So if you can just be sitting in a stoplight, not touching anything, right? So that to me was awesome.
Yeah, you don't have to press your brakes.
You literally, when I drove it, it was the only thing I touched was the gas. And that is, to me, it was like a monkey could drive it, you know? And the awesome part is, you know, the instant torque. And everybody talks about this, but what I related it to is kind of like driving around in first gear or second gear, like a really low gear, where you had that immediate punch, you know? And it just, I mean, the thing just had so much snap, even going 55 miles an hour.
So it's not that I didn't enjoy driving it. And the whole entire time, and I've driven that, and I've driven the Audi E-Tron. And it, for the most part, like you get in it. Well, the E-Tron's like a regular car, so except for it's electric, and it doesn't have like the same regenerative braking that is similar to the Tesla, which can be extremely, like, you know, you let out the gas and you slow down right away. But there's no, like, I would drive an EV to work every day if I had to travel for work. But in my circumstance, like when I get into the car, it's all about like, it's either taking the family around, or I take the Beamer to go out and I just have fun with it. But if I wanted a car for the joy of driving, it wouldn't be an EV. And a lot of that is because like the acceleration is cool and it's a cool sensation just to have that instant torque. But it's also kind of weird and nauseating because you go fast, but you don't get the sense of going fast because your brain is programmed to hear sound. And so like it's like you look down and you go, oh my god, going, you know, 100 miles an hour, and you feel
the only thing you hear is wind noise, but you don't even hear that much.
But you don't hear anything. So it's like the joy of driving is almost gone. And that's why nowadays like stats don't matter, because every car could basically get obliterated by EV cars. So now everybody is about driving sensation and the joy of driving. So that's why
I think that's what is we're going to have a nostalgia period for gas cars. And it's already here, right? You see all these gas manufacturers putting out crazy high horsepower cars, you know, because they know the end is near. But I wonder if there'll be a pushback on it eventually, right? Somebody wants to return to driving, just pleasure, and not the fake kind, you know. I think with all these new cars with their pumped in exhaust noise through the speakers, a lot of people don't like it, you know, and rightfully so, because they know it's fake, right? The gig is up, and I don't think you can fake it with an electric car, like, you know.
You can't. And there really is something about just revving a car out, you know, and hearing, you know, just the mechanical aspect of a car. It's almost the same reason why so many people love mechanical watches, because they love the engineering that goes into just something that has a bunch of moving parts. And in a car, it's different, because especially if you have a manual car, you have the shifter, you have the clutch, you are always holding on to something, bracing onto something, and you get the audible noise as you rev the car out. For an auto enthusiast, a manual car can never be replaced by an EV, and in regards to driving sensation, you know, the hydraulic steering, feeling the road, and it's like when you drive a sports car, it's not like a luxury car for one thing. Like when you drive a sports car, it's all about
the visceral feel, right?
Visceral feel. You feel every bump in the road. You hear your sticky tires. You hear the gravel and the dirt hitting the, kicking up rocks and hitting the wheel well. And you hear and you feel everything. It's a complete visceral experience that just can't be simulated with an EV car. And that's the difference between an enthusiast versus somebody that just wants somebody or something to take you from point A to point B, or just looking for a car. So a car means so many different things to so many different people. And obviously for this type of show, we're enthusiasts. So we're going to be extremely biased when it comes to cars and what a car means to us. So, but I don't want to labor any more than that.
I want to close with it because I think we got it backwards with electric vehicles, right? Because I think, and you can't convince the manufacturer to do this, and I don't think they could reasonably do it for a cheap price, but I think they should start introducing electric vehicles as a cheap alternative, right? As a daily driver, make it as basic as possible. Make it, have a 200-mile range, have it extremely basic. Try to get the intro pricing. Try to get people that would probably, today would be later introduced to EVs, right?
200-mile range is definitely a must-have for an electric car. And right now, technically, there's some good alternatives, but the people that are buying EV cars now are not your everyday folk. It's
not their only car too, and that's kind of what I forgot to make that point.
That is true.
And that's why
it also depends on the type of individual they are. But there's a reason why they sell way more Teslas than Chevy Bolts. Like a Chevy Bolt is like the perfect car for most people. It's got over 200-mile range. It's like 30 grand and super practical. It's actually decently quick. That's another thing. EV power is definitely deceiving because it's instant power and it might feel quick because you get it right away. But and unless you're driving a Plaid, those like standard kind of EV cars are quick off the line, but they fall flat. And that's like one of the things about a gasoline car. Like it revs up and it just keeps going. It pulls harder the faster you go for it in regards to like a sports car. But yeah, go ahead. Closing thought. Sorry, finish that thought.
Well, are we going to talk about the Land Cruiser and our thoughts on these things?
Yeah.
On this Lego car?
And it's funny is when I first saw it, I thought it was fake. It looked like it
does look fake.
It looked like a running.
It looks awful.
Yeah, it looks like a Lego car. It's weird.
Well, they kind of took styling cues from the Land Rover Defender.
Yeah.
It looks like a Defender 90, right? Like the two-door.
It's got the same rear quarter.
Yeah, with the adventure kit on it, right? With the gas tank or gas can strapped to the side of it. Very, very overland looking, right?
Yeah.
What is that second door? What are you going to get in, like a freaking 90-degree angle?
Yeah.
It just looks horrible. Obviously it's a concept car.
It's quirky. It's cool because it's quirky. But
that's what made the FJ so cool, was that it had the same Lego appearance.
Yeah, now look at FJs now. Look at that market. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable, the price. People are getting like 25 grand for something like 200,000 miles.
This is where Toyota is going with their cars. And they've already announced and they've already shown concepts of all the cars that they're going to be producing, and this is basically it. So, pass. I wouldn't buy it.
Hard pass. Everything is hideous.
All right. So, Next topic.
Toyota is coming out with a Manual Supra. Everybody has been talking about it for the longest time, saying that it's going to come out. It's finally out. Technically, it's a BMW. We're not going to get into that.
Well, we might.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's a Toyota with a BMW interior. And BMWs make very nice interiors. So, take that for what it is. I like the styling. It is one of those polarizing designs where you either love it or you hate it. Personally, I think it's a good-looking car. Nick, you don't like it?
It's okay.
So here's my thought. This is what the this is what the Toyota Supra is. That was an honest mistake too. It's basically a Toyota that you get serviced at a BMW dealership, or a BMW that you can get serviced at a Toyota dealership. It's a two passenger M2. That's basically what it is. But
the M2 is way better.
Sure.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
10 times better. Not 10 times, but twice as good.
You're not wrong.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's what it is. So, except for the last generation M2, you got the S55, which technically you could say the B58 is a better engine.
Yes.
I'm not gonna.
Better sounding for sure.
But also the M2 when it came out, it did come out with the N55, which is a very good sounding engine. But anyways, we're not gonna get into that. So,
do you want some stats on the Supra?
Some stats. Give me some stats. Feed me some stats.
So, when they launched it, it was 2020 when they launched the Supra, right? I think it had 330 horsepower. This year, they bumped it up to 386 out of that B58 engine. So the manual trans is going to be offered on the top 3 trim levels. So right now there's 4 trim levels. They have the 2.0 2-liter turbo, right? Then they have the 3.0. Then they have the 3.0 premium.
Yeah.
And the 4th version is that, what is it? A91 MT. Right?
So MT for manual transmission.
Right. You can get a manual transmission on any of those top 3 with the B58 motors. You can only get 500. There's only going to be 500 available in that A91, which they're only making 1,000 models of those total. So 500 of those should be in manual transmission.
Okay. So extremely limited
on that, but you can still get the manual transmission on the 3.0 and the 3.0 premium.
And we'll have to, and it's weird because I remember reading that the United States was going to get 500 of the manual transmission version, and there was only like 1 or 2 different trims that you could get it in, and one was like white and like a 10 interior, and it came with like 19-inch forged wheels. It was basically
that is the A91 MT.
Okay, and so that's a very track focused version, and that's going to be
which they're only making 1,500 will be manual transmission.
Okay, all right. So
what they originally said about only 500 manual transmissions being available is wrong. That it will be in the 3.0s.
Okay.
And
all right.
Now they didn't specify on Toyota's website how long they're going to do it. It just said, this is for 2023. This is what it's going to be.
So this is for 2023. Usually car cycles go for 4 to 6 years. So we're going to see how long they continue producing the Supra. Obviously with the shortage, the demand for the Supra has gone up quite a bit.
And I think as long as Nissan is producing the Z, at least around the same time, they will continually be right there.
And that's so basically it comes down to the Nissan Z or the Toyota Supra. And if I recall, the Nissan Z starts at 40, but basically optioned out. It comes like mid 40s to low 50. And the Supra We're
Goes
not
way
even
up.
we're not even gonna talk about the 2.0. So we're only gonna talk about the 3-liter inline six, and I think we're talking like 56 base price, and really, if you want any packages, it's gonna be like 59.60.
Yep.
So 10 grand more.
For a BMW.
For a BMW. I mean, when people say that, you sound like it sounds bad, but technically, like, it shouldn't sound bad.
But they shortchanged all the enthusiasts that loved the Mark IV.
I get it.
That is what pissed people off. You know,
everybody
it's
wanted
like
a 2JZ.
they took the heritage, right?
Yeah.
And they could have done it. They have the money to develop their own car, and they didn't. You know,
this is what
they chose the safe route, and
this is why I hope that, and I know that he's been hearing all the chatter, Akio Toyota, and this is probably why he came out with the GR Corolla, because it was kind of like, watch this, you know, we could do our own sports car. And the thing is, Toyota makes damn good sports cars, so I don't know, man.
I'm sure from a performance standpoint, compared to the Z, it will be better suspension.
It will be better.
More power. I think the Z has slightly more power.
Yeah, but
I mean what's 10 horsepower today? And
that's also you gotta. That's BMW horsepower, and BMW always underrates their horsepower. So 380 BMW horsepower is more like 410, 425. So, I think the power is null. Now, all the performance numbers that I've seen, Supra's quicker, but it's a Z. I mean, really, what it comes down to is are you bothered by the Supra being a BMW, and are you willing to pay 10 grand more?
And here's my issue with Toyota. They're very reactionary, right? Like, they're only doing the manual transmission because people complained about it. They only did the GR Corolla because people complained about ruining the legacy of the Supra, right? It's like, why can't you just be more forward thinking and say, and hopefully with the GR lineup, you know, they are thinking, you know, more forward and giving us stuff we actually want before we cry about it, you know.
So I actually love the way that the 400Z looks. I haven't seen it in person, so I can't really have. I think there's some nuances to the design, like because they tried to incorporate all the Z cars from prior years, right? Like they had the ZX taillights, they have the 240Z front end. But to me, the hood and the headlights look not very appealing. And of course the headlights is just I don't even understand what they are. It's like a teardrop that cuts. I did a video talking about, like, I kind of somewhat redesigned it. I actually think the design is pretty good. Personally, I actually really like the Supra, so if I had to put one in the garage, it'd probably be the Supra. But I'm also a BMW guy, so the BMW linkage doesn't bother me. So we're gonna move on to the next topic. Also, side note, the MDX Type S that came out, it was a good send-off. This is the last year. I think it looks good. They're working on a new NSX, and it's gonna be EV. So anyway,
womp womp
womp womp womp. All right, next topic. So they've deliveries for the new Integra have arrived. I've seen it on the road, seen it in person. I think it looks pretty good. I see the value.
It looks amazing.
Yes, and I also think I saw the new SI the other day, and I thought it looked really, really good. So I think it's a bargain. Both of those cars are a bargain. and I have no complaints.
I think the SI looks awesome. I really do. They killed it, and they made it bigger. They made it more family friendly. They made it. I mean, they literally, I think, just smashed it out of the park. The looks are great. The wheels are great.
Interior is great. Everything about it,
awesome, and the price is amazing. You know,
and
people can actually get it.
It's funny because that, I mean, it's basically a 30 grand car, but I mean, it's crazy how inflation is basically hit, because I remember when the SI was like less than 20 grand. I remember it was like 16 grand. I remember when the SI was 25 grand, and now it's a 30 grand car. So it just goes to show.
Which in today's world is, you know,
in today's world, it's not. It's actually a bargain. And for the Integra, you basically get a nicer car with a hatchback, so a little bit more utility.
For what, $2 grand more?
Yeah, for a more sophisticated and spruced up car for $2 grand more base price. But if you want like a sporty spec, you're talking about 35, 36 out the door, so about $6 grand more. So 20% more. You're essentially paying 20% more for the accurate nameplate and the hatch, and a little bit more refinement. So yeah.
The only thing I would have an issue with, I would actually do the touring, the Civic touring, because you can get the same wheels, right? You can get it in the manual transmission, but it's probably a lot quieter. They have more sound deadening. That's
essentially the Integra, right? Yeah. But not the luxury version. So the more utilitarian version of the Integra, which is basically the Civic Sport hatchback, which I think looks amazing. And that means that if you think that car looks amazing, that means the Civic Type R is going to be mind-blowing, right?
Yes, it's got to be. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. New Civic Type R, everything I've seen, it's going to be unveiled mid-July at the Indy 200, and everything that I've seen so far, even in camo, it looks amazing. So it's going to be amazing. It's not going to have all the fake vent, all that stuff going on with the current generation. It's going to look way more
less insect-like.
Yeah, it's going to be more mature looking. That's probably the best way to describe it. Except for it's got like and what I love about it, it's got like the kind of Porsche GT3, GT4 type wing, where it's got the metal brackets holding it up. And yeah, anyways, that's one point I want to make about the Civic Si. I think it really looks refined. It looks like not like a 16-year-old's car. It looks super mature. And
yes, very mature.
And I love that they went, I don't want to say it's conservative, but it's a more mature look than the previous generation. Anyway,
it's just more refined.
Looks good. Looks great in person. Great value. I like it. All right. So
next.
I mean, we probably should have hit on this topic when we were talking about the Supra, but so the 86 and the BRZ has been out for over a year, and you cannot buy it. So
you just can't find it, right?
Okay, you're right. You can. It's just, are you willing to pay 10 grand over MSRP to get your hands on one? Because they are being marked up quite a bit, and I haven't had a chance to drive one. But everything that I've read, it's an amazing vehicle, and I think it looks amazing.
It does. And reviews are in. They're awesome, right? True enthusiasts say this is a true enthusiast car. You know, it's a little bit still underpowered, but rear-wheel drive, super lightweight, not expensive, stick shift, great handling, great brakes.
Yep. At this point, I don't even care if it's underpowered, because right now it is like the joy of driving is now more important than ever, and it's nice to be able to bang through gears and look down,
connected to a car.
Feel connected to the car, and to bang through gears and not like be going 150 miles an hour down the freeway, because cars are so stupid fast right now that any performance car these days, like you're talking 0 to 60.
I think we can all agree that driving a slow car fast is more fun than driving a fast car slow.
And I think that's kind of the revelation that a lot of people are having now. And that's why everybody's kind of having these nostalgic moments where they're going out and they're spending a ton of money on these kind of old classic manual cars because it brings you all the smiles, and you can enjoy them without really breaking the law. So yeah, there's something to be said about being able to go on the highway and being able to shift a couple gears, and now it's like I'll give you an example. A Porsche Cayman GT4, like by the end of third gear, you're like 90 some miles an hour, and by the end of fourth gear, you're talking like 100 and some miles an hour. So like the third gear pull is something that all of us probably love or enjoy. And so yeah, and you can't really bang through those gears, and the whole point of like a good manual sports car is like to be able to shift and to downshift and do all these, to have that connection. Anyways, can't find it, so I love it. I think it's a good looking car. It's too bad that it's one of those things, like all these enthusiast cars that all these car manufacturers are producing, people just can't get their hands on them. So,
and I've mentioned this before, but it's like it's almost a lose-lose situation, right? It's like Toyota producing these very limited runs, but the people that want to buy them can't buy them because not only is the dealer marking them up, but then enthusiasts come in, wealthy enthusiasts come in, and Toyota spent all this money on development, is doing a very limited run, and they want to keep it cheap because they want to keep it for the enthusiasts, but then in the long run, the dealership takes advantage of them, and then also wealthier car owners, collectors come in and scoop them up. I just think it sucks, and I wish Toyota could do something, and they can do something, right? But they just choose not to.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just probably not on their radar. It's not a big enough issue for them, but they could, and they should reprimand the dealerships from putting these massive markups on the cars.
So specifically the GR Corolla, it's $36,000. You can't get it for $36,000. It's basically a $50,000 car, and it's so limited, and there's so much demand that you can't get one. So we're talking a couple thousand are going to be made and shipped over to the United States, and there's probably about 30,000 people that want to get their hands on one, but they can't because it's extremely marked up, or it's just super limited, and unless you know somebody, you're not going to be able to get your hands on one. So yeah, that sucks. All right, so we're gonna close this with something a little bit more family friendly. Nick, you have a kid. I got 2 kids, and if you decide to have a second kid, would you consider getting a 3-row SUV or a minivan?
3 kids, and I would.
3 kids, so it has to be 3 kids. So you're fine with,
because you can get a bigger 2-row SUV now.
Okay.
With a bigger trunk space where you're not gonna feel cramped.
I guess grandma's not driving with you then. Right?
I mean, if I had, that's a good point. I would love to get a Tahoe. We're considering getting a Tahoe. So, I would. Yeah, 100%. But anyway, back to your point.
There's something awesome about having the convenience of a 3rd row, but also just the trunk room of having that 3rd row down. Something super nice. Like, we have the XC90, which we love. And when we were shopping, at the time that we bought the XC90, the MDX was something that we considered. The RX, you could get the 3rd row and the long wheelbase, but it was not even on our radar. So they came out with a new one. Have you seen what the new RX 350 looks like?
Mm.
All right, let me show you. New RX. I'm gonna say one word. I guess two words. Beluga whale.
That's not that beluga-y. That looks pretty good. I mean, the side panels are so tall.
Of course, that's like the F Sport version, but
Oh, no wonder it looked so good.
yeah, and then they did knock it out of the park in all areas of the car outside of the front, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's warming up to me.
I really like that. I think that looks good. But is it just me or the side panel's really tall and the windows aren't that tall? But that's kind of how the RX is always kind of look.
That,
right?
but also new cars are like that because so basically new cars. One of the big differences between new cars and old cars is the sides are really tall and the windows are shorter because of side impact regulations.
And trying to get that coupe look.
So back in the day, you used to be able to like put your arm out the window like this, and now it's like this.
The good old days.
The good old days when cruising 2 miles an hour down the street. I didn't like it at first, but now it's warm.
Yeah, you're eating your words now. That looks good.
Yeah.
But see, that's an upper trim level model. So, of course, they're going to look good. That one's not the F Sport, you said, right?
Yeah. Lexus always makes... they've always been somewhat behind in tech. They're catching up. But they've always made beautiful interior. It's a beautiful interior.
Beautiful and pretty classic, right? Like very, very durable from what I remember.
I wouldn't say durable. I would say Honda and Acura probably make the most durable interiors, and Toyota and Lexus make the most durable, reliable cars. Like Lexus has always had this thing of like the materials on the dash and the materials on like starting to wear down. Whereas like a lot of Hondas and Acuras, if you take care of it, it basically looks new for a long period of time.
The Toyota and Lexus always, I mean, they were so far behind the times in terms of tech. They were like the last to develop.
They're catching up.
Yeah, no, really quickly because I think they know that it's obviously very valued.
I think the market changed, and they had to react to it. They basically, it came to the point where everybody was buying cars for tech versus just reliability, and the tech part of the car became more of a priority, so they had to transition.
Because you remember the old Sequoias?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, it's an interior straight out of a 2010.
Yeah. Even the new ones kind of a little bit behind the tech, but you know one thing that I've always hated about Honda, Acura, or just Japanese brands in general is they cannot get the surround view cameras right. It's always trash compared to what the European and American cars are doing.
Especially those side views.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
They're comically bad.
Yeah, it's like they're using old cameras. Like everybody's on, 1080p or full HD, and they're using standard definition. It's just not good. And they still have a lot to figure out when it comes to just the smoothness of the infotainment system. But overall, I think it looks okay. Here's the thing. The best looking Japanese SUV on the market right now, in my opinion, is the MDX.
I mean, Honda has nailed this new lineup look.
The new MDX is so beautiful. So beautiful. Like
it's a little bubbly.
Have you seen the MDX Type S on the road?
No.
You haven't? Gorgeous.
See, I don't know. I like the RX better than that. I mean, that's beautiful, but it's a little too bubbly for me. And it's mostly the top, right? I like the flat top of the RX.
And every time I see these on the road, I just gawk at it. It's just such a beautiful car to me. And the interior of the MDX is just stunning. And it has all the luxury features that you could possibly want. Panel roof, air suspension, big wheels, big brakes, a smooth infotainment system.
Those run what, mid-60s?
Massage seats. I think. Their starting price I think is for just the base and MDX. MDX. I think it's like 50 grand. Let's see. 48 grand. Yep. And the MDX Type S, I think it's 65 grand. And that's like basically fully loaded price. 67 grand with destination. That's not bad.
I mean, it's a luxury SUV.
It's a luxury SUV, and like that's basically the base price of like the BMW X5.
Yeah, but I mean, are those even comparable? I just feel like they're comparable only until you get to the type of people that buy them, right?
Yeah.
The target audience. Then it kind of falls apart.
The BMW X5 base price is 60 grand, and you get 0 options. Like you basically like the base X5 is just not very good looking, but when you
I didn't know the base was, what'd you say, 55?
60 grand.
60 grand. So a decently optioned one, you're going to pay at least 70, 75.
At least. X5s, like most of them that are sold are optioned out to almost $100,000.
Ballin'.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the X5 looks amazing. I think it looks amazing.
You can get pretty wild with the X5. As far as like just the options list, it gets pretty gnarly. But you get an MDX Type S, fully optioned out the door with every feature that you could possibly want, and a decent engine for 67 grand, and Japanese reliability, Japanese maintenance cost. If you want massage seats in the X5, I mean
it's a good argument because, how many people that buy a true sport utility vehicle like these two cars are really using it for sport?
They're not.
So I would think they're very comparable. I'm sure the suspension of the X5 is quite a bit stiffer.
Yeah, and like if you're
you're not taking it on a racetrack. You're not even going to be driving it fast.
If you're not getting an X5M, then like what do you want an X5 for? And
even an X5M, like what are you gonna do?
And the X5 is a 2-row SUV with an optional 3rd row. Whereas the MDX is a 3-row SUV, so they designed it from the very beginning to have 3 rows. So, it's just, different people are buying these different cars. But I almost feel like the MDX is on the list of everybody shopping for a luxury 3-row car. Like everybody that I know that looks for a luxury SUV, like the MDX is like one of the ones that they always got to test drive, or that they consider. Even the X5 guys. I
just don't see an X5 guy ever driving an MDX.
I don't know. I have a family that love the X5, but they purchased an MDX because price, practicality, and the kids are gonna trash it anyway. So, But and as far as driving dynamics, the X5 will probably take it. Like the new BMW G platform is so good. You're talking about the SUVs; they drive like cars. But at the same time, that new the new MDX with the SHR will drive. Like I imagine it will drive really well too. Like the SH all-wheel drive is an amazing all-wheel drive system. Like
is it as good as X-Drive though? Probably not.
Oh, it's better, dude.
What?
Better. It's better. You look at all the videos.
Is it front wheel bias?
It depends, because they tune it differently. So I don't know if it's going to be front wheel bias for the Type S, because the
Probably
Type
not.
S is supposed to be more sport oriented. But and now this is an SUV, so it depends on what you say. What makes it better? Getting out of snow or driving in snow and adverse conditions, SH all-wheel drive over X-Drive every time.
Yes, 100%.
If you want a sports car that is more rear-wheel drive bias and feels like a rear-wheel drive car, X-Drive.
Because nobody does rear-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive systems better than BMW.
Okay, I give you that. Because I have X-Drive, and if I mash on the gas and just cock the steering wheel, it will do donuts in the parking lot.
Hold on. Question. Does Honda even make a rear-wheel drive car? Only rear-wheel.
No. Not
They
since
don't.
the S2000.
So yeah, when it comes to performance all-wheel drive.
But
Anyway,
the NSX is basically a rear-wheel drive car, and then the front wheels are driven by electric cars, but it's okay, yeah. All right, you're right. So that's the other thing. Why would you buy an SUV, rear-wheel drive SUV? You buy an SUV because you want four-wheel drive.
I'm with you, but
so yeah,
driving experience is going to be better with a rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, you're right. So I was just looking at the base price of the BMW X5 is 60 grand, and that's an S drive. So by the time you put a third row and X drive on it, it's already the same price as the MDX Type S.
But why? Ultimate question. Why would you get an MDX when you can just get a Tahoe for almost the same price? Not super loaded, but mid-level.
Man, fight words. Come on, dude.
Dude, the Tahoe is undefeated.
All right, it's different car.
Third row, bigger, way bigger, less mileage.
It's way bigger.
Not as elegant.
Here's the thing. If you drive them side by side, back to back, the MDX drives more like a car.
100%.
So it depends on the type of buyer that you want. Do you want a large SUV that is bigger and feels like a bigger car, or do you want a large SUV that feels like a car? Like the MDX, you drive around, it feels like a car. It drives small.
Well, it has
a Tahoe drives big.
It has a car chassis, right? And the Tahoe has a truck chassis.
So the Tahoe and Suburban drives like a big car. Like when you drive it, it feels like a big car. I drove like a big Suburban in California. The big, like the winding mountain roads. We were going from one chute to another chute, and we were going from like El Mirage. I destroyed the brakes. But at the same time, I was like, I was driving like a sports car. But yeah, I'm very familiar with those cars, and
they're a load. I mean, they're huge.
And
it's a truck chassis, right? With independent suspension.
Here's the thing: you notice driving a big car when you're trying to park it,
and when you're just going around any sort of curves, right? Any sort of windy road.
I'm just talking about like daily living with it.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
when you drive a big car and you're like parking it, you're just like,
parking
this
Tahoe
is a big car.
An ordeal. You know, it's an ordeal because it's super wide.
It is.
The margin of error is small.
That's where I think there's the value of the luxury SUV that drives like a car versus like. That's why it's like two different types of people. I think the Tahoe Suburban guys is not
completely different.
Is a completely different breed. Like those guys are like, Sequoia Expedition Excursion guys. Like it's a different mindset. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. So what do you guys think? MDX, RX, 400Z, Supra, EV. Where do you see this going? I want to leave this to everybody out there to kind of give their 2 cents. We definitely want to start a discussion and see where it goes. What topic should we hit next? What cars interest you guys? Nick, what are your closing thoughts here? I'm gonna let you in this one.
This it was a good conversation, but yeah, I want to see what people think about. I don't even think we touched the EV. Really, we just barely grazed it, right? That's like, a whole nother episode.
That's like episode there's a lot of 1 of like 5.
There. What's that?
That's like episode 1 of 5. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of politics in there. There's a lot of considerations, but no, this is fun. I hope people comment and give us some suggestions and let us know what they think.
So thanks for watching, guys. And also, we're just starting this. This is basically our pilot episode 1. We're just going to crank it out. We do this because we love it and we just love talking. If you guys don't watch, if you guys don't comment, it'll hurt our feelings, but we'll be fine. We're just going to keep doing this.